how cool would it be to be able to put the benefits of sauna into a pill? I would be a billionaire. What a lot of people don't know is that if you have 2 to 4 sessions a week, that you can cut your risk of all-cause mortality in half. Half. If I could tell you today, I could promise you that you would not die. I would cut your risk of death by 50%. I mean, right? Sign me up.
Red light therapy, hot saunas, and cold plunges. Welcome to the world of hot and cold therapy. On today's episode of Nashville Wellness Collective podcast, I am your host, Unique Cortez. The Nashville Wellness Collective is a directory of Nashville health and wellness practitioners that span from Eastern to Western modalities and therapies. Because here at the Nashville Wellness Collective, we understand that health and wellness is your personal journey and it's unique to you. No two journeys are alike. So we're here to provide you with the resources you need to make an informed decision for your journey because it's yours and yours alone. And the Nashville Wellness Collective has got you covered from east to west. Please give the podcast a like as it really helps us improve the channel and provide you with more resources like this. Be sure to comment down below any questions that you may have, and please give the channel a follow so you don't miss out on the next episode. To learn more about all of our guests and to peruse our directory, head on over to the NashvilleWellnessCollective.com. Follow us on social media at the Nashville Wellness Collective. On today's episode, we have the founder and owner of Urban Sweat. With 2 locations under her belt and a third one on the way, she has Urban Sweat in the Nations, Wedgwood, Houston, and coming up soon, Nolensville. She is a mover and shaker. She is killing it in business and owning it in the hot and cold therapy niche. With that said, I give you Kristen Nicholson.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I made it through the intro.
You did it.
So I know I just gave a brief introduction, but if you want to tell us a little bit more, introduce yourself more in detail and where people can find you.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me. This is a huge honor. Will say we met at a wellness event a few weeks ago, and the energy of that event it was our first time doing it at the JW Marriott, but we had such a great group of women-owned businesses there that I was so proud to be a part of. But then the vibe and the energy from all of the people, and I thought where no one would cold plunge, and then everybody cold plunged, and I turned around and everybody was gone. So it was a ton of fun. So I appreciate seeing you and meeting you there, and then this opportunity, of course. So I'm Kristen Nicholson. I was born and raised right outside of Nashville, so local for the most part. Have lived in Nashville proper for 24 years and spent most of my career in corporate healthcare on sales and operations and team leadership type experience, both nationally and internationally. My most recent corporate position was based out of the Philippines. And so I did a lot of traveling back and forth there, working different time zones and things like that. So grew quite tired during those years, but it was really rewarding. And was able to figure out while I was there that, wellness and physical activity and training were passions of mine. I used to coach at a local gym here 6 days a week, even on top of my corporate job. Opened the gym at 4, taught at 5, took at 6, and was on my first conference call on the way out the door. So perhaps that led to some of the burnout. But it was really rewarding. And that's truly where I started to experience the power of sauna. There is another studio in Nashville, and I was their customer from day one and would go every day during my lunch break, just as a midday break to myself, a little brain rest, and would go to the sauna, and then I would, get ready and go back to work. And really started to see the benefits of infrared sauna on my health, and fell in love with it, and had actually been talking with several people and had thought about opening my own business and kind of doing it on the side. And wasn't quite ready to leave the comfort of
Sure.
the corporate healthcare salary and positions and 401k and things like that. But I had a coach of mine who said, coach and friend, who said to me, don't tiptoe. If you're going to do it, go all the way.
Go all the
And
way.
I tend to be an all or nothing type gal. And so one
for it.
day I just woke up and decided to create Urban Sweat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now it is what it is today and
It is.
growing so
Yeah, it's
fast.
growing really fast.
And you've got another location coming
Yeah.
up in Nolensville, you mentioned?
Yeah. So I opened up the nation's location in February of 22. And a month later, I was like, well, that wasn't that hard. Maybe I should go back to work again. I started to kind of miss my old days. And decided to do a little consulting and still do here and there on the leadership side of things. But it's interesting that I can pick and choose my projects on things that I loved and things that I thought I was really great at doing, which was going in and building and putting together the infrastructure and putting together the team and then walking away and letting somebody else lead it, who I hired, who was smarter than me. And I found that in doing that, creating a franchise model for Urban Sweat allowed for that very same thing, right? And so we're sitting here at our Wedgwood, Houston location. We call it WeHo. And they've been open since February of this year. And this is our first franchisee model. We call them operating partners. They are former customers of the nation's facility. And so it was very organic, the way that came together. In fact, working in Nashville is like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon to some degree. Right. We figured out once we started talking all the different ways that our paths had interconnected from one another. And so it was exciting to get Wedgwood Houston open and look at other opportunities. As you mentioned, we have another franchisee who will open up in Nolensville by the end of the year. Construction starts at the end of this month. I have 2 phone calls tomorrow, one for another location inside of Nashville, and then one will be the first one out of state. And then have had some plans that we're working on that should come to fruition very soon, where we will have more people joining the team. And so we're really excited to talk about 10X. And so we're pretty excited about that.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That's beautiful to see. Like, it was just an idea to begin with, and then it flourishes and manifests, comes to fruition.
Yeah, it's been really crazy, actually. When I opened up the nations, I thought that would be it. And then I thought, but why not more? Or why not, this? And so it's really exciting. And I think the adoption of specifically these modalities has been really interesting to me. And, in Nashville, we're kind of starting to see a bit of oversaturation, to be honest with you. That might worry some people. To me, it's exciting. Because it is more people that are aware of the benefits of infrared sauna and red light therapy and cold therapy. Not to say that we won't add other modalities at another time. It's just what we find is the most important modalities right now. Is, when we started, the vision was to create a different and higher standard of recovery and self-care studios. And we do that by creating transformative experiences for our guests in mind, body, and spirit, truly. I mean, that's one of our values, right? We say self-care is healthcare. We say we're treating the total well-being of someone, and to hear our guests that come in for the first time and to hear their feedback about how they feel, and us to be able to be there and a part of that journey has been really exciting to see. And I'm so glad really that people are more aware of these modalities, and see it growing across the country. And that's why I can't wait to have our first one outside of Nashville as well, and to start to experience the same thing I experienced when I was the first cold plunge in Nashville, to go be the first someplace else.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about, because you mentioned modalities, and I know it's not just cold plunge, because when I met you, I tried cold plunge for the first time ever. Oh my gosh, it was crazy experience.
I'm not saying you hesitated. I'm saying you observed quietly till the very end.
Y'all, when I got in, oh my gosh, I just remember when you were speaking to me, because you spoke to me the entire time, and I literally don't know if I would have made it without you speaking to me. So there's something about the misdirection, or, directing my thoughts.
Yeah.
It was so important in that moment to control my thoughts and your voice helped guide me through that so much. So thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
And after researching online, come to find out it's not just cold plunge,
Yeah.
it's urban sweat,
Yep.
sauna,
Yep.
and red light therapy and cold plunge.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about each modality and what it does?
Yeah, of course. I like to do it in the order that you just said it, right? I like to go from sauna to red light or red light to sauna and then always end on cold plunge. So when I talk about the benefits of it and I talk about the modalities we have, you'll often hear me say it in that order.
Okay.
And we have two different types of sauna. One is the cabin sauna, which is the wood and glass type cabin that 1 to 2 people could fit in. We added that at a later date. We're so glad that we did. We get requests for that, but the way we started was with our pod saunas, right? So the difference in between the two is the cabin sauna is a typical 45-minute session, heats up to 167 degrees. It is infrared heat. And a lot of times people will bring a friend with and, catch up and that sort of thing. Our pod saunas are a 30-minute session and they heat up to 155, 165 degrees. It is a lay down unit and your head stays out.
Okay.
That's how I fell in love with sauna. That's what I have at home. That's what I do every day. I like it because it can be done in 30 minutes and it's a good deep sweat and I can keep my head out and move my arms around. And so that was the first part of adding sauna to our different groups. We don't have the traditional sauna; it's only infrared. And when I think about part of our tagline is self-care is healthcare, I think how cool would it be to be able to put the benefits of sauna into a pill? I would be a billionaire at this point, right? Because what a lot of people don't know is that if you have 2 to 4 sessions a week, that you can cut your risk of all-cause mortality in half. If I could tell you today, I could promise you that you would not die. I would cut your risk of death by 50%. I mean, right? Sign me up. And it was something that a lot of times we thought of as a luxury to go to a sauna. But what if we could reframe that and start to think about it as a proactive approach to our healthcare? And coming from corporate healthcare, that's where I really wanted to focus more on the proactive side rather than put a Band-Aid on it and try to find what pill is going to help you now. And so, like I did the Women of Impact campaign for the American Heart Association. There are tons of studies that talk about heart health and the impact from infrared saunas, and it's insane to me. I think a lot of times when we've been looking for space around here, we'll talk to landlords and they'll say, "Is this a trend?" And I'll say, well, ask the Europeans if they think it's a trend, right? Where everybody's got their own sauna and they do their own cold water swimming and things like that. And so the answer to that is no. I think people are starting to experience it and feel the difference. Because for me, I know that day one, the first thing you notice is your skin, and you have glowing skin, and then that night you sleep better than you didn't realize you weren't.
I can attest to that.
And oh my gosh, sleep is the crux of everything. And right there, that enough is enough of a benefit to continue. So we enjoy the sauna, get nice and hot, and then we go over to red light therapy. And that is a panel. You lay on a massage table, and the panel is a medical grade device. The one that we use has just been registered as and patented as medical grade. So, you'll see on TikTok shop a lot like those the red light masks, and I'm sure they're fine. But the wavelength is what's really important on the red light therapy. They also call it photobiomodulation therapy, PBM. And it is the wavelength of both infrared and red light that you really want to focus on. And that's why we choose the brand that we do for what we have in the studio. And so if you came in and you said, "Hey, I'm having some back pain," we really kind of talk with you and do intake with you and make sure that you're a right candidate for red light therapy. And you may want to lay on your stomach so that the light can focus on your back. I, for one, I think that red light therapy, the benefits of it sound like word salad a lot. And so I really don't like to talk to people and find out why they came in and how they heard about us. Because, maybe they've moved here and they're used to sunnier climates. And now it's the gray months of winter in Nashville and they have seasonal affective disorder. Well, red light therapy is really great for that. And to feel there's no heat to the light, but you often feel warm, and it is the impact of getting 4 hours of sunlight, right? It's almost like taking a vitamin D pill. And so we see a lot of improvements in the grayer months for things like that.
That was one of my questions was sauna heat.
Yeah.
Red light therapy.
No heat.
Not necessarily, but you might get warm.
Yeah. You might get warm in certain areas, especially where you need it.
Okay.
Because all three of these modalities are a reduction in inflammation.
Okay.
And so maybe if you have an area that is really inflamed, you may feel a little warm.
Okay.
Not to the touch, but you may be like, that's interesting. I feel it on my back where I'm sore.
Okay.
That's where it's doing the work.
Oh,
Right.
Okay.
And for me, I use it. I'm hypothyroid. It has increased my free T3, my testosterone levels by 5 in a year.
Wow.
And so considering coming off of the thyroid medication that I take daily, right? Because nobody wants to take a medication daily. And so that's been really interesting as a benefit. I can tell when I'm not doing it because I may or may not have a patch of gray hair that comes back every time that I kind of stop using it.
It stops your gray hair?
And helps with hair growth, right? So we have a lot of new moms that'll come in or post 2020, a lot of impact was hair loss. And so women will come in and it really helps back with hair growth. It helps obviously with guys who usually have that problem, but you see it with new moms too because of hormonal issues.
Right.
It's, I think I shared with you that day that we have a lady with Parkinson's that comes in twice a week and her tremor has stopped. I have my neighbor across the street from me also has Parkinson's, and he heard me tell that story once, and he said, "Why have you never suggested that to me?" And I just didn't know. We had never talked about him having Parkinson's before. And every day that he has been using it, he says that he finds that he's addicted to it now and he wants to do it. And it's really helping him sleep at night. But the biggest thing that we've noticed at 85 years old is that he's not had any falls.
Wow.
And that's huge. That's, at that age, you just can't afford to have a fall at that point. So those type of things have been really interesting. Again, now I want to preface this by saying that I'm not a doctor and we are not trying to treat anyone in that way, but there are things that you can find in working with your doctor. An example of this is a month ago, there was a young lady that came in to visit us and she was using red light therapy because she was going to have endometriosis surgery. And when she went to her pre-op, her doctor found that they didn't really need to do the surgery anymore for her to continue 2 sessions of red light therapy a week, right? That's the minimal effective dose. That's really what you want to try to do. And it is something that you can't just, you don't want to just do it for a month or so, twice a week, and then stop. It's something that you want to maintain. We see a lot of sports injuries. We see a lot of post-op. We see a lot of dental issues. We see a lot of wound healing and eczema and psoriasis cases that will clear. And again, I mean, I'm telling you, I feel like it's word salad. And I think what's really interesting is the testosterone levels. You talk to any guy right now and everybody's got low T, right? And that's for a multitude of reasons. And to be able to do just a 30-minute session of red light therapy, to be able to notice the difference has been incredible. It's been really, that's the modality I think that has surprised me the most. And I'm so intrigued by, and that I feel like we're not talking enough about.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. Cause you just hit me up with all the alphabet and I love it. I'm here for it. I love my ABCs.
Oh no, it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. And so when people come in, that's why I really like to say, what intrigued you about red light therapy? And then also, did you know? Same thing. I met a girl at one of our pop-ups at one of the gyms that we go to often. And she started telling me about her symptoms with MS, and she is a violinist. And so her hands are really important to her. And I was like, would you just come and try red light therapy and please, if you don't want to come again, I'm not trying to trick you into anything. I just want to do something that is effective for you. And she continues to come. I mean, it's really incredible. I know that there is the wavelength goes into the skin at a certain distance, and the treatment of inflammation is really what the key of it is. If you look at the top chronic diseases, those are caused by inflammation. And so if we can do any of the combination of these modalities to decrease inflammation, then there's less incidence of those chronic diseases. So I think that's the main thing with all the modalities. But I see people come out of the red light room and they are like, woof, if I haven't had a good night's rest, or, I can go in and shut my eyes and experience a session and come out and feel like I got a lot of deep sleep that night. So that's intriguing. I've seen it a lot for when I am high anxiety, which is a lot of times, right, as an entrepreneur. It's a good way to calm me. And I've seen studies recently about, obviously we know that there's a gut-brain connection. And so it's improvement of gut health. I don't think I've seen the studies that have come out and been published yet, but I know that they're really looking into it, right? Because of those same reasons. And it all comes back to inflammation.
That is fascinating what you said, because yes, I've heard that your gut is like your number one brain. It's like a whole other, the gut microbiome is like a brain in and of itself. That would be really cool if you connected with somebody who does like the functional medicine and testing on the hormones in the gut and does all the lab testing. And then if you worked in conjunction with them, with a patient, so you have your test patient.
So we could follow it. Yeah,
and then get that evidence.
It's incredible to me. We know that there's a gut-brain connection in that way. They're calling leaky gut is how, we all heard about it. And now we're hearing about leaky brain. And now we're hearing about type 3 diabetes being Alzheimer's, right? So there definitely is a connection there. And I can't wait to, sort of see what the latest on that is. I know that I hear a ton about it on all the podcasts that I listen to, and there's really something to it.
Yeah. And the inflammation, like you said, being the root cause of all of it, because I spoke with a functional medicine doctor who actually, he's doing some testing right now with this machine called therapeutic plasma exchange. So it's kind of like dialysis style, where they have you hooked up. And so the blood that comes out is like cleansed, and they add like, in this one, they add something, I forget the scientific name, but essentially what it is, like literally what it is egg yolk. It's yolk, and it's supposed to be in place of like plasma. So they're not taking plasma from some other person, or it's just the egg yolk that they use in place of it. Yeah. And then they infuse it back into your body.
That's wild.
And it's so wild, but they're doing testing right now. And apparently this helps with like the inflammation as well, and cleansing the blood and restoring blood and regenerating the blood, because they're like, blood gets old over time, and it's good to like extract blood and cleanse it and put new blood into you and refresh things. And they are finding so far that it is helping with Parkinson's. Basically every neurodegenerative disease it's helping with. And so I also wonder, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if those people came to see you too? And then we charted all the empirical evidence, and we find that that modality with these modalities, like how it can really completely save someone's life.
Yeah. Well, just what you said, a lot of times when somebody comes in new for sauna, I say, it's common for you to see some splotching on your core and your upper thighs, and it's okay. That's actually really good. That's just fresh oxygenated blood. And you may see it for, 1 to 3 hours after. And that, we see that a lot too on the side of cold plunge, where if you've got some sort of injury, you're going to feel it really intense in that cold water. But then when you get out, all of that fresh oxygenated blood goes to that injury, and you can go for a run again, or your ankle feels great, or whatever. So it's been really interesting to see that there's definitely something to it. I'm not a candidate for taking out my blood and recharging it with an egg, I don't think, but don't hold my check back in 5 years and I'll be adding that in room 8 or something.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I know. I was like, sign me up. But apparently I was too young for the test study. So it's just, I don't know. He's got a very specific age range that he's looking for, and to help, I guess, just a little bit older candidates that might be suffering or showing the symptoms of onset of neurodegenerative disease. And he was like, it can start as young as like in your 30s, or even younger. And he was like, it starts with something as simple as, where did I leave my keys? Or where are my sunglasses? Oh gosh, they're on my head. Like, he's like, you think, oh, haha, it's funny, but he's like, that's an onset sign. I was like, no way.
Well, I mean, as early as you can catch any of these things anymore, more on the proactive approach, instead of being like, okay, dad's, doesn't need to drive anymore to get to that point, I think is, the longer that we all live. Right. And that's what all of this is it's not about, I want to live to be 150. It's, I want to live a really healthy 90 years. I want to be able to get up every morning and go for a walk and go for a run and do things like that. And I think that's the focus on all of these different modalities and these different labs and markers that we're looking for now. And the fact that people can have concierge medicine and really hone in on genetics that are, predisposition for any sort of comorbidity. I think the more all the information that's out there right now, I kind of geek out about it.
I love it.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just run the
exactly right. It's so true though. Knowledge is power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so your ideal client, customer, I mean, that's like anyone, but can you just take us through, like, is it safe for any ages? Do you recommend certain ages for certain modalities? And it's good for apparently like even preventative injuries, people with injuries, and then all the way up to like elderly ages to help with neurodegenerative, preventing that or reversing the effects of neurodegenerative diseases. So can you just kind of run us through who it's good for? Who's a good match?
I'll tell you who we see. We see there are some kids that are under 18. We just ask that a parent sign off on them and accompany them to their visit. But I see a lot of track runners that are in high school. Or one of our guys that comes in on Sunday, he just went off to Bellarmine. So he was our Sunday routine of our cold plunge. But kids that are coming in and recovering that way. We see anybody from your casual group fitness class member come in. We see CrossFit athletes come in who really know that recovery is very important. I think sometimes the occasional fitness class, we don't focus that much or understand the importance of recovery. I can be guilty of that as well, despite my access to these modalities sometimes. But, we see corporate executives come in and this is their mental break and the way that they impact their sleep the most and decrease stress. And we see new moms come in who are regulating hormones, and we see men and women who are coming in who are trying to increase their testosterone levels. And so the range is wide. You're exactly right for why somebody might be coming in. And, it might be the only 30 minutes that somebody has to themselves. Wow. You across Nashville, you've got so many different opportunities right now to experience these modalities, whether you're doing it as a solo session or doing it in a group. You have all of these opportunities here in Nashville, which is very exciting. And I just find that 30 minutes to myself without my phone in my hand is the best recharge that we can do. We talked earlier a little bit about some of the benefits of the first two modalities, but one of which that we didn't was cold plunge, which is how you and I met, and talking about the impact of neurodegenerative disease there. And as I was reading the studies that kind of talked about the therapeutic hypothermia opportunities for this, about how it slows and stops the synapse in your brain that is creating these diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And that's part of the reason why you're seeing such great improvements with those two diseases. What we see mostly is sore muscles, injury, and mood and sleep. And that's what we see the most. But we even have a group of guys that come in that all were in treatment together, and they come and do their recovery with us. And it's that dopamine hit that they all come and come as a community. And we really love that. But what we did recently with the Nations in the Wedgwood Houston location was we had a group of 50 people. Just like you said, we wanted our own data. I mean, we can read stuff with the cold plunge all day long, but I didn't know those 50 people. But it was our community, our 50 people that committed to the minimal effective dose, which is 11 cumulative minutes in the water a week. How many ever sessions that takes you to get there. And to be able to experience at the end of each week, we would have a survey that would measure their weight, their improvement, or their details on their sleep, their mood, and their stress. And I think there was one other one, but immediately we saw that there was a 75% of our group experienced a different or change in their weight on the positive side, right? To have lost weight or they felt their metabolism was different. I always hear a lot of people sometimes say, is it common for me to feel really hungry after this? Which I always think is really interesting. 97% of our group saw a huge impact in their sleep. That was the first thing off the bat. That just goes right back to what we were talking about the benefit of sauna use as well. That's the first thing you notice, and that's the crux of everything is sleep. So it was a ton of fun to do. They did it for a whole month. So we were able to measure these things throughout the whole month and then sort of publish it. And we worked with Cold Plunge to be able to share that as well. And then we chose a winner from WeHo and a winner from Nations. And they were really proud about it. But to hear, they all shot a video at the end to talk about their experience and in doing it. And I think, I think they did it because it was fun or a friend talked them into it. But what I heard them all say at the end was how surprised that they were to have experienced all 4 of these different metrics change. And something so simple like cold water. But you even saw it that day that we met, right? The lady that worked at JW Marriott, she came to me and said, I don't think anybody's going to plunge. And I thought, oh no, I'm over here with all this ice. What am I doing here? And I think everybody did. Maybe not 3 people out of the 50. And what happened was, I talked to you guys about before you got in about what you were going to experience. And at that point, it probably no one was listening because they were all freaking out about getting in the water, right? And then they get in those first 30 seconds and they truly were in fight or flight. And that's when I was like, I just need you to focus on me right now and not your toes, which is, the coldest thing that you'll feel at that moment. And once you get past that 30 seconds, that's why we'd like to go in and coach you, especially as a first timer in the studio, because we know that within those first 30 seconds, you're going to get out of that water if we're not with you. And we really want you to just hit 1 minute to be able to experience the benefit. Just so you know, there's no reason to go over 5.5 minutes. So some people try to come in and be heroes. That studies show that after 5.5 minutes, it's diminishing returns. I personally don't love cold water enough to want to stay in there more than 5.5 minutes. And then you tell me diminishing returns, I'm out of here. So that's why we choose the 3 minutes when we're doing these pop-ups. But I always think the funniest thing, I love it when new people come in, especially as a group or when I'm at these pop-up events to do this, that everybody laughs. Everybody, and it's that dopamine hit that people, and everybody's sort of giggly. And that just makes me smile to hear and think about. And just, early on when I opened up the Nations, I've got this lady pictured in my brain who came back down the hallway and said to me, I don't remember ever feeling this happy. And, oh no, I mean, water works. And so I just think about that all the time, about how we can use practices of how we get into the cold water in real life, right? We're all a little nervous before we get in. We get in and we don't love it. And then after it's over, we feel like $1,000,000. And think of something like a big presentation or a big meeting that you have. And maybe you're really focused on that and you're sort of feeling the anxiety and you worry and worry and worry until that moment comes. And then the moment comes, you crush it and you leave and you're like, what did I spend all those days stressed out about? All for nothing, right? And so I think about that, and I think about the breath work that you do when you're in the cold water.
That's
and
important.
how you can do that in everyday traffic, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Since my first cold plunge experience with you,
Yeah.
I've been not taking full-fledged cold showers, but you know when you turn on the water and it's cold at first? And so now I'm like, I'll purposely turn it on and I'm like right in there as it comes on and I'm like, and I remember to breathe and I'm like, okay, just wait. Cause I know it's just a few seconds before it'll start warming up. But I know I'm like, let me just give my body that initial shock and maybe a little dopamine rush.
Yeah, of course. And more energy throughout your day. I mean, talk about that's a wake up right there.
Yeah, it's great. And so I thank you for inspiring me to bring cold therapy into my everyday life. And I'm trying to do more meditation now too. But like you said, those are things that you can do in traffic and you can do on an everyday basis that kind of help keep you in check, keep you healthy, keep your mind and everything healthy.
Little habit stacking.
Yeah. So when you were talking about how breath work, and you were also talking about how some people do this because it's their one moment of the day where they get to have some self-care, self-love, and mental clarity. What is your opinion, your thoughts on having that mental health, that mental space? Like, when you have a clear mind, do you feel like you can manifest more in your everyday life? Like, what do you feel a cluttered mind versus a clear mind looks like and how it functions in everyday?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've all had clutter minds where we've got dings, emails, people calling, why didn't you answer my text? You know, that sort of thing. In the immediacy of what everybody sort of expects in return and response for those things, I feel it every day. And I've gotten better about turning my phone off, or I'll text the team and say, hey, I'm just going to turn my phone off for an hour. That's how they know, like I've been pinged to death. And just even 30 minutes to go for a walk and clear your mind. I mean, that's your zone of genius, is when you can finally declutter your mind, right? And get creative again and to think straight and take a beat. And you know, I'm not the best in the world at being present. I'm already kind of thinking about 10 things after this and what I've got to do today, and I got to get my dog, and you know, but to be able to take that moment for yourself and be able to do that, I think is really important, not only for yourself but your relationship with others. And you know, you're coming out of a time where a lot of people were felt lonely and maybe still feel lonely, but to be able to take that time to yourself and then just be a better person to the person on the street. I think we could all use a little right now. And I don't mind that time. That's time, you know, I see people walk out differently than the way they walked in when they come into the studio every single time.
Yeah, you're impacting people's lives and making them better.
I tell you, there's not been a day that I have not said to myself, I wish I had done this sooner. You know, just not only to, you know, I don't want to say that the impact, I mean, right, we're not curing anything per se, but to be along with somebody on their journey to be the better part of their day, right? I mean, that's what we really focus on, is our guest experience, and to be able to know that every guest and every experience matters that crosses our doorway. And that's why also one of our values is community. You know, I have a girlfriend that says, God, every time I open up Instagram, I feel like you're everywhere. Good. That's exactly right? Is not only do we care about our community within these four walls of our studio, but outside of here. And so that's why when you walk into an Urban Sweat studio, you're going to meet an operating partner who owns this business, who is in this community, who is local, who is, you know, walking side by side with the people in this community. And that is what is so important to us. And I'll say it over and over and over again, no matter what happens with Urban Sweat, what matters to me most is the community inside and outside of these doors. And that has been the most rewarding thing, I think, that we've experienced since we've been open such a short time. Really, I think it feels like 10 years, you know, but it hasn't. It's just we've been going at full speed, and it's terribly exciting. Yeah,
I feel like you're growing so rapidly and you're manifesting all these great things into your life and helping the lives of others. And I think it's happening more rapidly than it would for the average person because of these modalities, because you practice what you preach.
100%.
And I think that you are walking, talking proof. You're like the proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
Like you are the pudding, and it's there, and it's good pudding.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, I mean, and that's why,
working.
we go to these events, and to reference again, where you and I met, and people I think are surprised to see me there, but I mean, I love it. I love it, and I want you to love it. And it's like sharing your favorite sandwich shop in town. Like, I gotta tell you about this sandwich. I just want you to feel as great as I feel when I'm in the cold and or out of the cold. Yeah,
it was shining through, and is honestly the reason that I reached out and was like, "Oh my god, I would love to have you on my podcast," because your passion.
Yeah,
like I feel like that's something that can't be faked.
No.
And it was so genuine. You shine like a diamond.
Oh, thank you so
much.
much.
And when you speak, and I was like, oh my
God.
Yeah. Like those are the kind of people I want on this podcast. That's what this podcast is all about, is finding people like you, like yourself, other practitioners, from breath work all the way to like the functional MD I'm speaking to. And so everything in between. But all of these people have like found their calling in life, and it's health and it's wellness and it's helping others.
And it seems so easy when you're doing things like that, right? When it's something that you really care about. It just seems so easy. Everybody, I'll have a meeting on Saturday with a girl. She's like, I just want to kind of pick your brain. And I'm like, well, don't pick it about this. I mean, this is what I love. I mean, you do what you love. So it's been fun as I've taken on some coaching in that sort of way too, through different entrepreneur groups that I've met across the city, and the city is buzzing with it. I mean, that's one of the greatest things about Nashville, I think. There's a group that is run out of the Entrepreneur Center here, and it's called Catalyst, or that's the formative group, but it goes into a group called EO, which is a global group. And Nashville is like the third largest group of EO members that there are. I mean, there's just so much happening in Nashville right now, right? It is Soviet city, I guess, for everything. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before we leave, I just wanted to ask one last thing. I like to ask my guests at the end is, if there's somebody listening, watching right now who is heard everything you said, they are on the cusp. They're like, I'm not sure if I want to embark on my health and wellness journey just yet. Do you have any sort of resource, maybe a blog or a book or a quote, or just something that you want to direct them to first?
Yeah. Well, I think just in learning about our specific modalities is checking out our website at urbansweat.com and learning about all the different benefits that each modality causes or that can, benefit from. But I think the book that I will always go back to, and, it's probably been said a million times, but The Body Keeps the Score. And you've never read it?
No.
Okay. You've got to read it. The Body Keeps the Score, I think, is the most impactful book that I've ever read about how, whether it's traumas or stress or, a culmination of a million different things and how we store it in different parts of our body, is you're going to be mind blown. I'm so excited now. I want you to read it.
I will. The title, as soon as you said the title, I was like, that makes sense. Makes
it truly does. And from each, there's, we've done events in the past with, food people that are nourishing the body, and therapists who are helping with talk therapy or different, different modalities there. You had our recovery stuff and workout. And we've done these events because it's all of those disciplines that come together and an open mind. And so I love to do stuff like that, is where, where you can kind of bring it all together. And people that are high vibing with each other, that are all creating the same outcomes.
High vibes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you want to just tell us where people can follow you on Instagram? And you already mentioned urbansweat.com.
Yeah. On LinkedIn at Urban Sweat Sauna Studio. Stay tuned there. Hopefully big news in the next couple of weeks. Each of the individual locations has their own Instagram page. So I'm Urban Sweat _ the nations. And we're sitting here at Urban Sweat _ WeHo. Nolensville soon to come. And that's where we probably do most of our activities there on Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Nashville Wellness Collective podcast. We hope you got a lot of insight about the hot and cold therapies, and hope that you feel so inclined to implement them in your life. If you enjoyed this, please give this a like and share with someone you care about. To learn more about
all of the practitioners featured on this podcast and in our directory to check out our weekly published blogs and dive deeper into all of our resources. Be sure to check us out online at the Nashville Wellness Collective.com. Until the next time, remember, here at the Nashville Wellness Collective, we've got you covered from east to west.